Welcome to the beginning of a new journey. Over the next several months, I have the privilege of sharing the art that fills my heart and speaks to my soul with you. I'm so glad you're here, and I cannot wait to show you everything that unfolds in this series. This is episode 1. Every winter, I take a reprieve from life on the road by visiting my best friends in Florida and my family in Vegas. I call it my artistic hibernation, but it's mostly a time to avoid the cold, have a consistent place to shower, and surround myself with those I love the most. I knew after visiting Newfoundland last year that I would be back. If ever a place had swept me off my feet, it was Newfoundland. I didn't know it would be so soon, but life has a tendency to put me where I'm supposed to be sometimes. After my winter hibernation was over, it was time to drive north. I spent the next 2 days driving 1,500 miles from Florida to Ontario to visit Sophia for a quick trip to Patagonia. That time flew by, and it was suddenly the middle of May. Time to say goodbye to Sophia and get back on the road to drive another 1,000 miles from Ottawa to Sydney, Nova Scotia, where we cross the Gulf of St. Lawrence and where this journey begins.
A parking lot.
Getting back on the road is always hard. A little secret for all of you out there is that living on the road, full-time in a vehicle, doesn't quite mean 365 days of the year. I do get breaks from sleeping in my coffin on wheels sometimes. No offense to Ross, it's just not a lot of space to live in, if I'm being honest. Without these times, I think I'd go crazy, or probably freeze to death. This year was nearly 5 months, the longest I had been off the road since the day I moved into my vehicle over 3 years ago. The truth is, you get comfortable, enjoying things like a microwave, a desk, and the comfort of knowing where you're going to sleep every night. It was even harder this time around because a new player had entered the game of my life, Sophia, whom I had to say goodbye to more times than I'd like. I must admit, the feelings were mixed. After over 3 years on the road, especially living the way that I do, road life is taxing. But at the same time, I'm also excited. I enjoy the comforts of consistency as much as the next person, yet I find myself stagnant and cloistered from routine. I find myself growing and doing my best work, not only in my photography, but also within myself when I'm out on the next adventure.
So the last time I was on this ship, I sat all the way at the back with a great view. I was ready to go. It had been delayed a couple days. The weather was really rough. And that's when I discovered that I get motion sickness. A little seasick. Now granted, the weather was way worse, and I didn't realize that sitting on the edge of the boat made it worse. So eventually I made it to the middle. I survived, but after the first hour I was just like, all right, nothing's getting done. I just need to sit here and focus on not throwing up all the food that I had in my stomach. But today is looking a lot better. Cross your fingers that I'll actually be able to get some work done. And for my own sake, not throw up.
My previous visit to Newfoundland wasn't until the middle of August of last year, and I was lucky enough to stay until the colors started changing for fall that year. It was absolutely breathtaking. So beautiful, in fact, that I'm already on my way back. However, I kept being told that I had to come back for iceberg season. When the weather starts to warm up, large bodies of ice separate from Greenland and Canada's northern glaciers. It slowly makes its way down the Atlantic, eventually passing by Newfoundland, thus iceberg season. This also coincides with the whale season and the puffin migration. Seems like a pretty great time to be here, eh? Also, the weather should be pretty good for a guy trying to avoid the summer heat in his car.
So if this is your first time on the channel, my main focus here is photography, although a lot of the times it's more about the adventure, finding the photos, and not necessarily always lessons in photography. However, during this boat ride, I have taken the time, while I have no service or anything like that, to start going through my images for my yearly submissions to the Natural Landscape Photography Contest. I think this contest, or any contest, is really important for improving your work, especially when you're feeling somewhat stagnant in your work. However, I know they're kind of a controversial topic. A lot of people are like, nah, I would never enter a contest, or I think they're stupid, or they just don't actually help me in my photography journey. But I want to explain one thing that I think is really important about them, is about art. It's subjective. How can you rank things from top 1 to top 5 or anything like that, especially when it comes to your own work? So a lot of times when you're entering a contest, you have to be a bit vulnerable. You have to send it in and see if anyone likes it. The truth is, a lot of the times when I submit my work to the Natural Landscape Photography Contest, I know it's probably not going to place or do well, but I do it for myself. I don't do it for the results. Obviously, if I ended up doing well, that's great. First year I entered, I only had one image selected for raw verification. And It got my wheels turning a little bit. I learned what they were looking for, the things that would probably stick out more than other things, and just the tricks of the trade for that particular contest. So the next year, I think I had 9 RAWs checked. And this year, the third year that I'm submitting, it's actually affected my photography, but not necessarily in the ways that you might think. The reason I think it's improved my photography is that it makes me go through my catalogs and see my work in different ways. A lot of the times, we are our own worst critics. A lot of the times I experience showing my images to someone and they'll end up pointing one out that I'm like, what, why did you like this one? And then I come to find out that more and more people like that particular image and I can't even see what they see. So by going through my images for a contest with a contest in mind or what I think they would be looking for, it makes me look at my work in different ways. There's images I've submitted to the contest. There's images that I'm taking right now that while I'm out in the field, I'm thinking differently about to try to take things that are different, that would do well in the contest. And even though that's kind of, maybe you're sitting there thinking, oh, you should only make your art for you and that it shouldn't be derived from a contest or what would do well with other people or anything like that. But the truth is, I feel kind of stagnant in my work sometimes. And that little bit of push, that inspiration from the people that do well, or the type of work that I don't necessarily see naturally, that they see, it pushes me to be a better photographer. So instead of thinking about it like, oh, I'm now becoming different for the wrong reasons, I'm just becoming different. And it's inspiring me to be a better photographer and try new things because I want to, not necessarily because I have to. So I think the biggest takeaway here is whether you ever want to enter a contest or not, something that you could really, really do is go through your own work with a critical eye, thinking, nah, this isn't good enough because X, Y, or Z, or this one's close. And something I suggest you do is go through your catalogs and just export all the images into a folder that you think might do well. That's what I was just doing on my laptop. And that's what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to narrow it down. And what I probably will do is I'll probably pick 6 to 12 images that I think very highly of or that I think will do well. And then I kind of just pick 6 images I just throw in as I'm like, maybe this will be good enough. Maybe they'll like this. Last year I did that. I don't think any of them got selected. Maybe actually one of them did. One of those 6 throwaways got selected. And I think that's a good reminder that sometimes the work that you see, everyone else is going to see different. And that getting new eyes, even your own eyes, thinking about it in different ways, can really improve your work, whether you're out in the field or you're shedding some new light on your old images. It can be a lot of fun, and you don't even have to go do anything right now. You could start looking at your catalogs right now.
So maybe I'm full grown, but I don't feel older yet. Maybe I'm too young.
All right, so what's the plan? Well, the plan is, there is no plan, really. You see, living on the road, or more specifically, how I enjoy living on the road, is to have an idea in mind, even something as simple as a direction, and just see where the road takes me. The last 2 years, I had no plans to drive to Alaska or Newfoundland. Yet, when the ideas were presented, I said, why the heck not? Let's go.
Oh my god, we are here. We have made it. Okay, we gotta make one quick stop before we get on the road here. My good friend Tim's.
When I took the ferry to Newfoundland for the first time, I hadn't even looked up a single photo. It was like going to a new movie with nothing but the title. At least when I went to Alaska, I knew there was going to be some big-ass mountains there. Newfoundland was a complete mystery, but it meant I went in with no expectations and was continually gifted with landscapes and scenery like I had never experienced.
Don't wanna get older, yeah. Maybe I'll face it, everyone changes. I'd see you on the weeknights, oh, we go way back when. No, I'm not the same old kid I was way back.
And while those new surprise experiences were great, I also had no idea where to go or what any of the places looked like. Thankfully for this trip, I have a good idea of what nearly all the drivable coast looks like. I'm sure I barely even scratched the surface of spots to photograph, but just having a general lay of the land's topography, amenities like coffee shops where I can work, places to eat, or how easy it is to find a shower, all make getting around the rock just that much more comfortable. The general idea, or direction if you will, is to head north and try to intercept the icebergs that are passing by the northern coast. Thankfully, there's even an online tracker for these icebergs, so I can see just where they are and where I should be as they make an appearance. First, we've got a couple stops along the way. Specifically, right now we're headed to the western coast to revisit these sprawling cliff sides that I absolutely loved the last time I was here and didn't get quite enough time during my last visit.
Whoa. What a beautiful morning. All right, so last night I drove into the night to make it to this spot so that I could shoot sunrise. I had trouble falling asleep, and sunrise was at, 5:40 Newfoundland time, which is 4:10 the time that I'm used to. And unbeknownst to me this morning, I completely slept through my alarm. Don't even remember it. Don't remember snoozing it. Don't remember waking up. The first time I remember waking up, I looked outside and it was bright sunshine waking me up. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I missed sunrise. So I drove here last night, not necessarily for nothing, but I could have just gone to sleep there and drove here today. But we're here. I'm going to get the drone up in the air. It is a gorgeous spot. Not that it looks like it right here, but right behind you is the ocean. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to brush my teeth first and give me a second to get the sleep out of my eyes. So, good morning. Thanks for being here. You're going to enjoy this.
So once again, same changes, same changes, time and again.
As soon as I got the drone in the air, the fog started developing along the coast. At first, the conditions created some really cool scenes, but as it thickened, I became more concerned that it would become that famously thick fog that Newfoundland is known for, which I'm sure we'll encounter some along this journey. Future Alex here, narrating. You have no idea how correct this statement was. Anyways, sure enough, it rolled in so heavy that the visibility essentially went to zero, and you don't need to know much about flying a drone to know that that isn't ideal. Thus, I landed for a bit and waited around. Little did I know of the magic that was about to happen.
Everyone around me changes.
As I flew around, I didn't really process the beauty that was happening in real time around me. Sometimes this is the cost of trying to document moments like this, where I'm so focused on how to capture the moment that I almost disconnect from reality and I don't take in what is happening around me. In this particular case, I'm very glad that I did because this was so wonderful to capture on camera and not only get to relive it through these videos, I get to share it with you. I just got to make sure I keep myself in check sometimes and put the camera down. Hopefully not over the ledge though.
All right, you've probably seen why I wanted to come back here to try to shoot sunrise, because this coastline here is just absolutely breathtaking. Got a little lucky, actually. Obviously slept in on accident. You know, I am human, things happen, that's okay. But when I came up here, a bunch of fog rolled in, and it created some really cool conditions for some midday type shots. The fog has cleared a bit off now that I can actually see the coastline, but I took a few shots with my camera up here on these rocks, and there was this I don't know it's not a sundog. It's a full rainbow, but it wasn't full spectrum because the light was just coming and hitting the fog that was actually below me because there wasn't fog up here. Created some really cool compositions, kind of unique. I don't know, I'm kind of working on this self-portrait series where it's landscape photos, but my shadow is in the photos. I'll put a few on the screen right now. It's a work in progress. I didn't or haven't felt like I've had enough to really do anything with it yet, but I've kind of been taking them as I've journeyed through America and Canada. And it created a really unique shot because I just stood up here on this rock right here and the rainbow circle completely engulfed me. And then right in the center is a more pronounced one, and then actually you can see my shadow. You can see the rays of light that I'm blocking from the sun all the way into the ocean. Pretty cool. I don't know if it's gonna work. It's really hard to see. It's very bright out, but cross your fingers. I think it was pretty cool. And then obviously flying the drone a little bit. There's a colony of birds way off in the distance. So I try to keep definitely just keep my distance with the drone, pretty much only flying right where I am. Want to be very cautious of that and make sure that I don't get too close to them and bother them at all. But it's been an absolutely beautiful afternoon here. Got lucky even though I slept in. And sometimes I'm at the right place at the right time, regardless if I sleep through sunrise. What a beautiful, beautiful place Newfoundland is. I mean, just like this weather, oh man. The last time I was here, the weather was not this cordial. So, feeling good. Man, life is good.
I'm too sentimental, but I'll get over it. Watching your kids grow up, do you feel older yet? Maybe I'm waiting, putting off changing. So once again, same changes, same changes.
All right, so as much as I want to stick around here, and normally I would, the benefit of the way I travel is that I would just sit here and hang out and watch some stuff, read some books, work on the laptop, and wait for the conditions to keep changing and watch another sunrise or two. But I haven't showered in 3 days, so I would like to shower. But more importantly, I don't really have a whole lot of supplies. I kind of waited to turn my fridge on until after the ferry ride. So I need to go to the grocery store and get some actual things to eat and drink. Ultimately, this was just kind of a pit stop on the way to what we're majorly here for, which is looking for icebergs. But first, we got to make a few pit stops, hopefully including a shower.
I feel the same way. Everyone around me changes.
This area is known as the End of the Land, or, and apologies for definitely mispronouncing these, Guasawage, by the First Nation Mi'kmaq. The first documented discovery of Newfoundland happened around 1497, and was specifically recorded that this area was inhabited by the Mi'kmaq First Nation. Interestingly, weeks after I was here, I learned that this entire peninsula is planned to have a wind farm developed within its hills, mostly in the forested areas that you can see in much of this footage, a topic I am not nearly informed enough to comment on, but I did find it interesting imagining that the next time I'm here, there could be over 200 wind turbines in these very shots.
Same things will change. There's no controlling it.
Okay, here we go. All right, we got a pretty late afternoon coffee here. We're showered, we got groceries, the fridge is on. We're hitting the road. Next stop, well, somewhere north. I don't necessarily know where I'm gonna stop, probably for gas and then maybe dinner or something like that. But for now, the adventure door is open and where we go is up to whatever is blowing that day in the wind, I guess you could say. So, I'm gonna pay attention to driving now and we're gonna hit wheels to pavement.
That evening, I drove to Deer Lake, Newfoundland, which is quite literally the crossroads between heading to the Northern Peninsula or east through the province. I couldn't make a decision where to go, so I just decided to sleep on it.
Oh, a little river. Nice.
Throw it down. Down by the river. After more research and going to the information center, it became more clear that the highest chance I had at encountering bergs was going to be in the northern area of St. Anthony and lots of meadows. Thus, after begrudgingly filling up Ross's tank, it was time to get moving. The first part of this 5-hour drive is through parts of the beautiful Gros Morne National Park, one of the iconic spots here within Newfoundland.
Out here, tired of being patient. I was waiting in line.
Gros, in French, literally means big, which doesn't even do justice to the majestic, beautiful fjords of this area. As the second biggest national park in Atlantic Canada, it was designated a park in 1973 and covers nearly 2,000 square kilometers of soaring fjords, imposing mountains, pristine beaches, lush forests, and barren cliffs. For perspective, the road that I'm driving on, known as the Viking Trail, didn't even exist until the 1960s after the discovery of the Viking presence in lots of meadows. The only way to reach most of these areas was by boat or plane. Gros Morne and the surrounding areas are home to thousands of moose, red and Arctic foxes, bears, lynxes, or is it lynx, or is it lynxa? I don't know, those things. Caribou and many other animals. While it is beautiful, most of the fjord areas are only accessible via a boat tour, which will then drop you off into the wilderness where you can hike to your heart's content. Thus, if you want to photograph it, you must come prepared to backpack. We won't be doing any of that on this trip, but I can say that even the boat tour is worth your time if you ever get the chance to visit, and I highly recommend it. Not far out of the park, we reach one of the more interesting formations along the coast. Coastal arches formed over millions of years from wind and waves, and an absolute great place to stop to enjoy the weather. Believe it or not, there's even cell service here. Pretty great.
But what you need is just a little more touch. Burning like a fever. And you can use my credit card. Never mind the sunshine.
All right, so first of all, it is an absolutely beautiful day here in Newfoundland. I am just glad I'm not getting pelted by wind and rain, which I'm sure is coming. Still raining. So, cross your fingers for tomorrow. To my knowledge, actually, St. John, or that peninsula down there in the south, is known to be the foggiest place in the world. But I got out here to stretch my legs. You might recognize this spot if you happen to catch my review of the iPhone 15 last year. This is where we took the first shot in that video. It's a really cool spot. There's these 3 arches in the ocean here. But what's really interesting about my visit now, and I'm not going to be taking any photos considering the light is super harsh, but what's really interesting is when I shot that stuff last year, the water was all the way up here. Like, I'm pretty sure I stood back there to take those shots. And you might be saying, you know, rising tide, low tide, that kind of thing. But I genuinely think that the water level is just very different right now than it normally is, just because I can see the tide line. The tide comes all the way up to where you can see these darker rocks, and it just kind of stops right here. And yet I was way back here when I took those original photos. And it's just really cool to see that I can visit a spot that I've been to before, twice, 3 times maybe, and see it in a completely different way than I ever saw it before. Like, there's a whole different cave unit over there that I could get to that I didn't even know was there. And it's just, I don't know, it's one of those stop, stretch my legs, and just get presented with something completely different than what I expected, going back to a spot I already knew. Absolutely beautiful day. It's just really nice to be out, soaking up as much sun as I possibly can. Although in the shade here, it's actually pretty cool. So we're gonna stand back out here in the sun. And then we're gonna get back out on the road and head north. It was tough to make that decision about where to go, if I should go where I'm going now, or if I should go more east on the peninsula or on the province. And ultimately, most of the icebergs are up far north. So that's where we're gonna go. I'm excited to see some, excited to see if we can capture any in some really cool scenes. Life, it's an adventure.
Back on the road and still about 3 hours to our destination, much of the mountains fade off into the distance. You get a sense of what most of the island of Newfoundland looks like. Boreal forests littered with small ponds mixed in with this beautiful coastal scenes that you're seeing. It's amazing to think that within a lifetime, much of what I'm driving on didn't exist. The town of St. Anthony, where we're currently headed, had a population of roughly 2,300 people in 1966 when it was connected by road to the rest of Newfoundland, and as of 2021, it has a population of roughly 2,200 people. The population has slowly declined since 1986, what I imagine is caused by the cod moratorium in 1992, which greatly impacted most of the island of Newfoundland.
This guy's just on the side of the road here. Yeah. Okay, I've just pulled over on the side of the road. Across this little pond here, you're definitely not going to be able to see it in this camera. There are 2 caribou grazing in the water. But what's cool is I'm going to try to get lower down into the water. I'm going to take my R7 with my 100 to 500, meaning I'll get it about equivalent of 800 mil, and just try to get some shots of them. It's midday, the light is super harsh, but if I get really close to the water, like almost eye level with them, maybe it could work. I don't necessarily know if I'm close enough, but yeah, I haven't seen caribou here before. Last time I was here, they weren't out grazing. I never saw any. I knew they existed up here, and let's see if we can, I don't know, get a fun shot, or at least some nice footage. In the distance over there, not that you can see it, it's definitely somewhere in this visibility, is our first iceberg sighting. It has no shot. There's nothing to try to capture in terms of, you know, photography or anything, but it is the first one I've seen coming up here, so of course I had to pull over and document it, because that's what we're here for, at least in the beginning of this journey. Iceberg hunting. Saw the first one, pretty cool. Quite too far away, but that's okay. Hopefully we're going to find a lot more up here once we get to the St. Anthony, Lonsa Meadows area. Wow, what a beautiful day. My goodness. Look at those guys. Hey, you're in the farm. You're standing the guy's crops. Okay, have a nice day. Newfoundland delicacy. All right, after our quick bite to eat there at a local Newfoundland. Oh, Jesus. Okay, maybe. Should pay attention to the road. Anyways, we're hunting our first iceberg. It should be around here in the next 10 minutes, close to St. Anthony's, which is the town that I will be kind of home basing out of for the next probably week up here, if I'm guessing. It's kind of what I do is I find a spot and just try to get comfy where I can still work on the laptop and stuff like that. But this little town of Goose Creek, Goose Cove Road is only about 10 minutes away, and the tracker said that there is an iceberg or 2 sitting in the cove over here, but I have no clue what it looks like, so we're going to drive over and see if it's photogenic or not, and we should be there within the next 5 or so minutes.
Driving on Newfoundland's roads is an adventure in itself sometimes. Let's just say I've been on some smoother off-road mountain passes than some of the roads here in Newfoundland. As I was coming into town, my eyes were looking in every direction for an iceberg, and nothing. I got my drone up into the air to look around the area a bit more, and there wasn't any in sight. Okay, that's not entirely true. There was one way off in the distance out there. This was the first lesson that the iceberg tracker isn't completely up to date, and this hunt will require a bit more exploration, which thankfully we're pretty well adept here on this channel. Speaking of which, if you're enjoying this kind of content and you want more behind-the-scenes stories, workshop updates, or more personal notes along the road, be sure to sign up for my newsletter that you can find in the video's description down below the like button.
Whew. Okay. I gotta put another jacket on. Holy. Okay, well, first of all, it's a little colder here than it was where I was before. But second of all, there ain't no icebergs here. So the map is just wrong. But it's not a huge deal. This was just the first spot that's closest to the town. And now I'm just gonna go try to take a few photos on the camera, because this is just super picturesque. Got the camera out, got the backpack on in case we want anything else. But there's this really pretty boardwalk right here, and the light is just this nice, diffused, almost pre-sunset light. Sun's still pretty high, but I think this is gonna be for a nice little photo right here. Somewhere in this spot. Well, I still have my lens cap on, but you know, movie magic. Here we go. You know, I was putting this jacket on, I was like, okay, don't forget to get the gloves out of the glove compartment and put them in the pockets. You're gonna want them, your hands are already cold, and as you can tell, I forgot the gloves. But it was gorgeous out here. We've had some absolutely beautiful weather the last couple days. I'm trying to soak it in, because thankfully I'm experienced enough here to know that it could be, it could go away and I couldn't see the sun again for a week. So, oh man, what a place. Just, God, I love this place. It's like one of my favorite places on earth.
Lying to yourself and telling the world that you're fine. Held like a captive and trapped by the wounds of the vines.
Walking around the coast, breathing in that frigid May air, and being reminded of just how much I love this chunk of land. It's such the opposite of where I'm from in Florida that almost everything catches my eye. From the plant life to the geology, there's so much to appreciate. I also personally prefer the cold over the humid heat, albeit that might change given a week of these temperatures.
All right, well, I am full of happiness right now because it is just, well, I keep saying it, beautiful. It's just really good to be back, and I just love this place, especially when it's not raining and windy. Now, the sun still probably has about 45 minutes-ish, maybe 30 minutes to actually fully set. Takes a little longer here in the summer up north, but it just went behind a giant thing of clouds. So right now is probably the last little bit of light I'm gonna get for this evening. Off over here in the distance, you're not gonna be able to see on this screen, I can barely see with my eyes, are two icebergs. There's one way out there and there's one way to the right. Very far off in the distance. I wouldn't even put a lens on and get it with my other camera. It's just not even worth trying to show you. That's how far away it is. But I'm hopeful that when we travel a little bit further north, we're almost at the northern point, but this is like, St. Anthony is like the town that actually has things in it. Once we go a little bit further north, about 20 minutes, that's when we get to Lonta Meadows. But for this evening, I think this is gonna wrap it up. And for the next week or so, I finally get to breathe a little bit, probably get some office work done, hang around, wait for some more icebergs to come, and just kind of not drive all day like I have been for the last 3 or 4 days. So I'm pretty stoked. Hopefully the weather continues to be the way that it is. And I'll show you any images that I get for the rest of the evening that I might like. Thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, thanks for being here. I'm glad I get to share this with you because it is just, what a place.
Seeing reflections of someone you don't recognize. These roots run deep. If the woods could speak,
Waking up for day 4 of being in Newfoundland, and today is the day we find icebergs to photograph, right?
Not a bad place to wake up, baby.
Oh, there's an iceberg over there. Hi, can I just get a large? Okay, so normally I try not to get straws, but thankfully they're paper here. But specifically, these Tim Horton cups, anytime I sip out a little sippy thing here, I always get dripped on by coffee. So I always have to get a straw. Yeah.
climbing the hilltops and following overgrown tracks.
Okay, we have found 3 icebergs in this little bay area. There's one that's like
visible right in front of me, and then there's two that are over these hills that look pretty gigantic. So I'm gonna get the drone up in the air and kind of get a lay of the land, scout the location a little bit, see what we can see. The one out there is really big, so I gotta get the drone in the air so I can actually show you. But man, these things are massive, and it's a bit overcast right now, but the weather prediction is that the sun should be coming out soon, hopefully. Oh, there's some right there. Man, there's a lot right here. Sweet. Okay, cool. Looks like we made the right decision coming up here, so that's good.
This was such a huge relief, considering one of the main objectives for this entire trip was to photograph an iceberg here in Newfoundland. And by all accounts, from the reports that I had read, this year was looking like it might be kind of difficult. Once I realized we found some icebergs and my nerves relaxed a bit, it let me take in exactly what was in front of me. I found myself in awe of just how gigantic some of these icebergs are. We're talking hundreds of feet high for some of them. The closest thing I've ever experienced to this was a glacier lagoon in Iceland, but most of those, while large, were never even close to this. Some of these look like mountains in the ocean. Now, considering my goal as a photographer here is to capture these magnificent pieces of frozen water in good light, it was now time to wait. I took a quick trip further north while the light was still overcast, and by the time I came back, the sun was shining and the icebergs were almost glowing from that light. It's incredible just how different these things present themselves in different light. Remember only a few hours prior that the ice blended in with the backdrop of the gray overcast skies, whereas now they're literally glowing from the light of the sun. This natural contrast means anything that I capture right now would likely get turned into a black and white, but much of these flights were more for learning the shapes, textures, and patterns within the icebergs, as it's very difficult to take images and review them while flying the drone. Thus, I did my best to take mental notes of what stuck out to me and what didn't. One thing was for certain is that large iceberg off the coast was the most interesting, but I was too feeble to attempt to fly out there. It looked quite far, and spoiler alert, it was.
Each turn you take brings another old memory back. Weak in the knees as the light through the leaves all goes black. These roots run deep. If the words could speak.
Till basically sunset time. We're still about an hour and a half, maybe almost 2 hours till sunset, but we'll get some nice light. Here's the difficulty with photographing these icebergs, is that they're absolutely gorgeous, like in this scene, in a shot. But when you just take a shot of just the icebergs, it's kind of boring. There's no context. So a lot of the images that I see from Newfoundland that involve the icebergs typically have them in a town with some backdrops or a person in front of them or the buildings that are in part of the town, and that's kind of what makes it unique. That's what makes the icebergs come to Newfoundland. There's not really any other place in the world like that. Otherwise, you could just fly to Greenland or something like that and just shoot the icebergs off the coast there if you just wanted to get some iceberg shots. Now, this one off in the very far distance that you can see all the way in the back is absolutely massive. It's beautiful, but it's so far away that I think it's not necessarily picturesque in the sense that there's so much distance between me and it that there's too much atmosphere between me. It has that almost mirage-like look, kind of like Lawrence of Arabia on that really long shot in the opening when they come over the hill. And yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, but that's basically what ends up happening is because it's so far away. So something I'm gonna try to do is this middle one, this one that's kind of probably the biggest in the frame, not this very front one, has some really cool patterns on it. So what I think I'm gonna do is actually gonna throw my 100 to 500 on either my R5 or my R7, which I'm filming on right now, to maybe even get 800 mil to get some really more abstract or intricate shots of the patterns that is on that little piece of iceberg right there. And then I'm gonna try to line up maybe the back iceberg with it to create some scale in itself. And I'm really just gonna try to compress the image as much as I can to try to make something work, make something artistic rather than just kind of just a snapshot of what it looks like here in the bay, because otherwise it just doesn't have that feeling of photography. It feels more like I just took my phone out and took a photo rather than something that's catching someone's eye or catching someone's attention. So that's what I'm going to try first. We're going to see if it works. I'm just glad we found some, to be completely honest. I was a little worried as I drove farther north. There wasn't really in any bays. And even though these aren't really in the town where you could get the perspective of the town, I'm just glad I have some to photograph. It's pretty exciting. And if all else fails, I'll just get the drone in the air, and that can usually come up with some really cool shots, especially now that I have the ability to shoot telephoto on the drone a little bit. But first, camera, let's try it. Yo, what the hell? What the? Okay, that was absolutely wild. As I was sitting here shooting at 800mm on the R7 of that Iceberg with all the really cool patterns that I was thinking it's gonna look great in black and white, and even the one far off in the distance with my polarizer on, there's just the right amount of haze that it actually looks okay. It's got this really nice golden light on it. So I also took a few photos of that. But as I was shooting those patterns and those abstract shots, those details on that closer iceberg, it started to calve. And then I got it on video. It just started to go sink into the water, and I noticed between two shots, I was like, wait, it's really moving. And then I started shooting video, and it just suddenly just started going into the ocean. And basically, the shot that I was taking is completely gone. The pattern in the ice is completely gone. So now I get to shoot other stuff. Probably gonna fly the drone in a second while the light is still really good. The sun is about to go behind these mountains back here, but it's also getting diffused a little bit by some clouds that showed up. It's actually creating some nice, really golden light on my scene, even though we're still more than an hour till sunset. So I'm gonna get the drone in the air, I think. I'm gonna keep taking a few shots, maybe something else will change. That was really exciting. And I even think the shots that I got before are gonna turn out just because of the way the pattern was, just in the way that it was almost spotlighting on that iceberg, that even though it doesn't have anything to do with the town or specifically Newfoundland, I think it's actually gonna come out really great as a photo.
After snagging that shot from land, it was time for the main event of the evening. This is what I drove 6 days to capture in over 3,000 miles, and it was time to test out just how far I could make it out with my new drone. Three kilometers later, and I was at this absolutely breathtaking iceberg. Being over 2 miles away means it takes a lot of battery just to get out there and back. Thus, I spent much of my time dedicated to focusing on the photography, and let me tell you, it was totally worth it because these are some of my favorite photos of the entire trip.
All right, while the photography from land was hard, photography from the drone probably worked out. The conditions were great. The light was really nice. Although the shot that I really wanted was having the sun in the background, but it kind of got diffused by the clouds, which honestly may work because I can't really get a great sun star on the drone anyways. So one of those shots probably worked. Regardless, got some really great footage, got a lot of smiles, having a great time. Today was another beautiful day. It rained in the evening, overnight. It rained this morning, was overcast, but the sun came out in the afternoon, and it's just been a gorgeous, gorgeous evening. And I'm really glad I just got to actually see and photograph some of the icebergs. That's why we came all the way up here. And now I just have, 2 months to be up here chasing these guys. So I'm probably gonna slow down a little bit, maybe start to get some office work done. I have neglected a lot of the other things that I need to get done, because living on the road is, as much as I'd love to be out here every day just scouting and finding things, means I still have to do all the other stuff, like make money and things. Not that I do it very well, but I hope you've enjoyed the images. I hope you're enjoying this video so far. Consider liking the video if you are, but it's okay if you're not. Well, if you're this far in, you probably do. So thanks for watching, thanks for being here. All right, I'm gonna go get warm, get to sleep. See you soon.
The next 4 days were filled with a lot of overcast, rain, and fog. I spent a lot of time on my laptop, which was great for a day or two, but by the third day of frigid, wet weather, it was starting to tax me.
Oh, it's cold. Oh, it is cold. Oh, it's cold.
One of the downsides of living in my vehicle is I can't really do much inside besides sleep and maybe a few hours of watching something or working on my laptop until I get too uncomfortable to continue. Even though it was only around 0 degrees Celsius, the cold here just hits different. I've slept in much colder temperatures in Ross and felt okay, yet here, with the humidity and wind, it was really rough. All I wanted to do was photograph more icebergs, not turn into one. Thankfully, I eventually got my chance.
Okay, after 4 straight days of rain and overcast with no sun, it's finally sunny out. And to be honest, I kind of expected that. I knew. I am just glad I'm not getting pelted by wind and rain, which I'm sure is coming. The days we started this whole journey of all the sun, I was like, what's happening? What happened to Newfoundland? The Newfoundland that I know, that I left. and then it came back. Came to the spot here because I got word that there is an iceberg. I don't think I've ever been over here. We're about a little bit north of St. Anthony in Great Brihat. Little tiny community thing that you can see behind me. A few houses. They got this really cool boardwalk here up to this vista. And I can't see the iceberg from the town, but I kind of saw the top of it when I was driving in. See if it's accessible. See if we can actually see it. And I decided, I've been cooped up in a Tim Hortons for 40 freaking hours. So why not get a little walkie in? Oh, there it is. Obviously it's very tiny on the screen and probably a bit too far out there for my drone. No, I could probably make it. We could get out there. But the shape of the iceberg isn't necessarily what I'm looking for. And I kind of wanted to come here just to scout to see what the iceberg actually looked like. Not in love with it. However, it could look cooler when I get closer to it with the drone. I'm not gonna fly the drone now. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna get back in Ross and keep driving north to the spot that I shot the iceberg a few days ago, because there was just more of them there and they've moved, changed. I actually checked them out yesterday during overcast. I didn't take any photos because the conditions were absolutely terrible for it. And I was just hoping that I may have gotten a sunset last night and it started pouring rain. So that didn't happen. So let's get north. Let's go see what those are looking like. I'm pretty sure the conditions should stay like this for the rest of the evening. That is the current weather trajectory. Not that I trust the weather, but it does have right now it has those after storm vibes. So I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna happen. I'm hopeful. And regardless, this is much better than sitting in a Tim Hortons on my laptop. So let's get up there. It's gonna take about 30 minutes and see what we can get.
After going back to where I got the first iceberg photos, I realized that sadly, the beautiful berg we captured previously was long gone, which is fascinating to remember that everything I capture here will never exist again. Meaning if you find a unique berg, you gotta try to get it immediately because it could change at any second. It was still too early for sunset, so the first drone mission was to figure out the shape of the new berg that looked promising, but was quite far away. had some unique characteristics, but it didn't really sing to me like the Iceberg that we had captured a couple days prior. But maybe, with some nice light, it won't really matter. It's better to have options than not take anything at all.
Which wavelengths you're hanging on? I wanna know which light you keeping on. I wanna know whose side you're on. I wanna know you completely and turn on your TV and put your records on, yeah.
Okay, we got one good flight out there. It's about 2 miles out there. Thankfully have enough signal, keeping line of sight with the drone and the Mavic 3. I would not be able to do that with the Mavic 2. But I'm walking back to my car really quick because I chopped one of my propellers landing on a rock because it just wouldn't let me move the Mavic as I was landing it. This was on one of the only flat surfaces I could find to launch the drone to go that way. When I landed it, for some reason, it came down and just went to the right as I was holding the joystick to the left. Right here, at this here propeller, got it pretty good. It'll still fly, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I have extra, and I'm gonna keep this one as a just in case, something happens. Little things like that can cause problems when you're flying, use up the battery more, stuff like that. But this is the perfect time to talk about something I've really, really wanted to do, and I think I'm finally gonna do it for this trip. About 2 years ago, if you're unfamiliar, I went to Alaska on this big journey, and I always regretted that I didn't really have anything to commemorate that trip with, not a book or anything for me to either garner support or for people that really enjoyed it to get something from it. But I've looked into making a book, and the realities of making a book as a small content creator like me is it's just not really feasible. I'd have to print like 500 of them to make it even sellable to a reasonable price, and I just don't have a big enough audience that I can rely on that maybe 100 would be bought, but at that point I'm still losing money on books. So what I think I've decided to do, and obviously I'm only my first week here in Newfoundland, but when this video goes live, there will be a link down below for a print folio. And I stole this idea from Ben Horn. It's a great idea. And basically what I'm gonna do is after this trip, I'm gonna have 5 prints, probably about 8x10 or 8x12. They're gonna go in a print folio, fine art prints. So we're talking really nice paper. It's gonna be presented just like if you were buying individual prints from me or anything like that. And they're gonna be gorgeous, and they're gonna be from this trip. Add a lot of personal stuff to it. It's gonna come in a little box set that you can put on a shelf, or you can take 1 or 2 of them, or all of them if you want, and have them framed and put on display, or anything of that nature, whatever you wanna do with them. I'm gonna sign them. They're gonna be all hand signed. Everything's gonna be personal touch by me. It's gonna really commemorate this whole trip and this journey of being in Newfoundland this time. And it's a way to garner support for me, show and help me on this journey. But it also gives you guys something that tangible, something that you could take from this journey that I'm on as well, and be a part of it and help support me at the same time. And I think it's gonna be really awesome. I wish I had more details, but I haven't exactly worked everything out. But by the time this goes live, everything will be linked down below. And the way it's gonna happen is I'm gonna do pre-orders. So I'm gonna do pre-orders all the way until the last Newfoundland video is done. And then once that video is done and uploaded and people have seen it, that's when I'm gonna stop pre-orders, and that will tell me how many prints I need to make. No matter what, I just wanna make prints. I really miss it. It's something I think that is really detrimental to living on the road, is that it's almost a part of my art that I don't get to do anymore, and I feel like I'm really missing it. So it's something that I'm really looking forward to outside of just, being able to provide you guys with something that you might be interested in. So check that out down below. I will have more details by the next video that comes out, and all the details will be listed in that. But those are the rough ballparks of what I wanted to do. And I was also thinking that if I had some stretch goals, maybe if 100 pre-orders happen, then I'll throw some extra images into every bundle or something along those lines. But it'll all be down below, so check that out. I'm gonna get these other propellers, and I'm gonna walk back, and I'm gonna fly the drone again, hopefully for more sunset light. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. And thanks for looking at that link if you do.
After getting Roger fixed up with some new wings, it was time for sunset. The interesting thing about drone photography like this is that you have to really plan the timing of when to send it out. It takes nearly 10 minutes to get the drone out there and back. Thus, once you're out there, you want to have enough battery to sit and wait for the best light. Otherwise, you'll just find yourself having to come back too early and missing the light that you're out there to get. Sadly, this evening did not have the best light. We got a touch of contrasted light, but the skies were mostly clear, which didn't give us any great tones or burn off for those pink and purple hues in the clouds, and I also kind of struggled with composition of this big guy. It just wasn't working as well as the previous berg we found a few days ago. I made the best of it though, and of course, I'll share an image or two.
Put your records on, yeah. I wanna leave this cold place and keep you warm. I wanna be your shelter from the storm, yeah. I wanna.
All right, it was really good to see the sun again. We got some more drone footage, and that is where I'm gonna wrap up this episode. But I happened to run into someone right here as I was flying the drone. They came all the way over, and I guess they're gonna probably be in next week's episode.
Hello, hello.
Look at them.
I didn't know you were going to be here.
Yes, you did.
When did you?
All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. See you on the next one. Check it out. Later.